Hi everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris, and good morning to all of the fine folks in the JB Live TV chat room this Saturday morning. Hello everybody, good to see you there, and of course, good morning to the dudes dancing behind me over on the new Defera Borg invasion ground zone. We'll be talking about that a little bit in this episode. Lots of people tuning in live at jblive.tv and hanging out in the game or hanging out in the chat room with us this morning. We got a big show today, a big show. And in fact, by the end of this episode, we'll leave you with the ability to run out of here and go get your hands on some new mission content. Now, I am talking about the Foundry, but we have a great Foundry Files coming up this episode. These guys have been talking to me about this mission all week. They tell me it's one of the best they've ever reviewed. So I know after you watch this episode, you're going to want to go play it, so stay tuned for that. We've also got a new math segment with Niki. Turns out some of you have some questions regarding those new science consoles, and we've decided we'll do a quick math and answer those questions. So Niki's going to join me and tell us what exactly is going on with that. Then, in community feedback, an interesting question came in the email inbox, and if you're a Doff system fan, I think you'll find it particularly interesting. So stay tuned to the end of Stoked for an all-new community feedback, where we're going to kick around a few ideas that I think you Doff system fans might like. But we do have some actual news today, too. Now, not a ton of news, not a bunch of big news, so we're going to skip the news roundtable this episode. Just me and you for the news, because it's short, there's not a lot to cover, but it's important, so I don't want to skip it entirely. Why don't we at first talk about free-to-play? The new free-to-play system is going to launch officially on January 17th, 2012. Now, some of us, I think, were hoping that date would be in 2011, specifically around the first week or two of December. And I think a lot of that hope probably came from the up-and-coming competition from the Old Republic. But you know, I think if you think about it in two different terms. One, the existing player base will get all of the stuff that's on Tribble, all of the build that's on there now, essentially the entire free-to-play system, in the first week of December. So us existing players will get that content to play during that holiday gap, you know, that downtime. I mean, come on, that's why Tor's launching now, right? Because there's that holiday gap where they can take advantage of people just sitting around doing stupid crap like dancing in an MMO while some guy on the internet records a show. You know, there's that kind of thing you do during the holiday season. And I think everybody wanted STO to take advantage of that with the free-to-play launch. I think this push to holodeck for existing players gives us that, gives us time to test it. That way we don't have a Season 4 style rollout. Now, I know Cryptic's tried to take steps to prevent that, but I mean, you guys recall the Season 4 rollout was pretty bumpy. And that would only be significantly compounded if you brought in free-to-play at the same time. So maybe you roll out to holodeck. If those kind of bugs do exist, you bang them out, and then you let things sit for a bit, and then you launch January 17th. I think there might be some logic there that they figure, people get their hands on Tor for 30 days, and then they'll get bored of it, and they'll come over and try the free-to-play game. I don't know. People in the chat room who may or may not be breaking NDA by telling me these things say that Tor's a big game, and there's a lot there. And 30 days may only just be getting your appetite wet, or get you hungry, whatever the saying is. I say it doesn't matter. I say Tor isn't competition. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I watch the movies. I've even watched a little bit of the Clone Wars. I just don't love that universe. It's just not as rich. It's not, as the chat room put it, my theme park. Star Trek is the better theme park for me. So I say in the long term, sure, in the December months, in the January months, when free-to-play just happens to be launching, I think that's when Tor will be the most competitive with STO. Maybe I should be saving this for a predictions episode, but I think in the long run of things, in the big picture, Tor is no more of a competitor to STO than World of Warcraft is today. They're both going to be huge, massive MMOs. One of the only things Cryptic could do to respond to something like that is going free to play. The only question is, will that strategy work? And will the timing work? We don't know that yet. Only time will tell. I think it is good that us holodeck existing players get our hands on the code in December. It's also good for the show because then we're going to start ramping up a ton of new content to cover the changes, like STF revamps and the Doff system and all the skill changes that are coming. Actually, that's just scratching the surface of all the stuff that's coming. So tons of great stuff for us. So I'm excited in that regard, and I think when you guys tune in, we'll get all of that new stuff, and you can absorb it. So by the time the free-to-players arrive, we'll have this system pretty well figured out. We'll have kind of the maybe even a few of the kinks worked out for them, so when they come in, things are nice and smooth. So I think, for us, it's good. Free-to-players, they got to wait a little longer. But maybe they could join now, I suppose, if they were really desperate. The other thing to probably chat about is you can find a link in our show notes. I won't go over all of the details right now, but I'll just show you a little bit. We've got vet rewards charted out further than I think we've ever seen them charted out before. It now goes out to 1,000 days, right? Yeah. Well, I see 7 days, 900 days, 1,000 days. Yeah. At 1,000 days, you get a free exclusive Starship variant for each character, and you also get a free Starship slot. Well, actually, that sounds kind of awesome. Anyway, you can read up about this if you want. I'll include a link in the show notes for that. Now, one other thing I'll cover before we scoot out of here. Look, these guys are still back there behind me dancing. I love it. That's awesome. It's actually gotten bigger, too. It's a big zone, too, actually. If you guys haven't seen the new Defera ground zone, this just hit Tribble. So it's not on holodeck yet, but it's big. It's massive. Here, I'm zooming out here on my map. If you're listening to the audio version, it's got to be one of the bigger zones we've seen. And it's really nice. It's really pretty. It's tied into the event system right now. So if you actually want to do some killing, instead of we're just hanging out, right? But the idea is the Borg, every so often, re-gauge. They come up out of their, see if I can show it. They have a big probe that lands on the surface of the planet. And here, if you can see that. And they come out of this every so often and they invade. And that's all built into the event system. There's also different territories around this map, like a power station and a temple, as you can go there and engage in different things. And then they have different levels, say, like, for example, of one of the stations, they have an easy level and a medium level and a hard level. That's pretty fun, and you can join and go to an optional mission where it's timed, and it's a pretty neat ground event. It is a DSC on the ground, but with a few twists that actually make it kind of unique. Whoa, Lord Ice is making sure in the chat room that I mention, and I should mention this too, because I know this would be an interest to a lot of you, the 700-day vet reward. Probably a lot of you would be interested in this. A free Android bridge officer. What is up? That is pretty awesome. So there you go. That's boy. I thought the vet rewards we got to already were way off. So the fact that we're even talking about 1,000 days it's pretty remarkable to me. So anyways, one thing I want to tell you about before we jump into math this week is the Jupiter Broadcasting newsletter. We're calling it the Jupiter Signal. Now, you guys might recall from last week, if you caught last week's episode, I've gone full-time. In fact, as I'm recording this right now, this is officially my first week of full-time Jupiter Broadcasting. It was kind of awesome, actually. It's kind of amazing what we have coming down the road. We have at least 2 more shows in development. I don't quite want to give you the details about them yet. They're really close. In fact, you might even be able to catch one of them on Monday night live. What we're going to do as we roll out new stuff is we want to come up with a way to let people know what we've got going on. So we've launched the Jupiter Signal. It's our new monthly newsletter. The first edition should go out in the first week of December. And it'll include things like information on our new shows, maybe the best Android picks, tips from some of the shows broken out into the newsletter, all kinds of different stuff, actually. We've got tons of ideas. But the best way to get it is to go to the show notes for this episode, and there'll be a spot right in the show notes where you can sign up for the newsletter, or if you just want to type it right in your web browser, you can go to bit.ly/Jupiter Signal, all one word. And that is it. That's it. You sign up for the Jupiter Signal. Of course, it's free. It's a newsletter. And we're using a service called MailChimp. I'm not giving a plug for them here. I'm just telling you that because if you know about MailChimp, you know how crazy they are about making sure we are not spammers. We are going through an application process. We have to get a new physical mailing address. I'm going to donate blood just to be safe, like an ounce, just to be safe. Hopefully they don't drug test it. But I am going to give them an ounce. And they do that just to make sure I don't spam. If I accidentally spam, I have to FedEx them one of my children. So do not worry. Go sign up for Jupiter Signal. Well, unless I want to get rid of one of my children. If you start seeing spam, you might know what's up. That's all I'm saying. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you. Let me know what you think about the free-to-play launch date, January 17th, 2012, and, of course, about it hitting the Tribble build hitting holodeck in the first week of December. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this. And chat room thinks I'm a little bit of a jerk. And, of course, I still got my dancers here. All right. Well, that's enough of all that stuff. Let's go get math. And welcome to the math segment. And joining me like every episode is Niki. Hey there, Niki. Welcome back to Stoked.
Hello, Chris.
What are we talking about today, Niki?
Well, today we're talking about further the conversation of the skill revamp. So that's been out for at least a week. We've got some opportunity to test it further. I've got a comparison and some nice big juicy formulas for everyone.
Oh, nice.
Comparison from holodeck to the new Tribble formula. We've got the revamp of some consoles. Most noticeably, science consoles have changed quite a bit. Some of the powers have moved around, so consoles have seen quite a bit of an overhaul. Also, one of the other things I'm going to be going through is just how the new skill system will affect you personally, and one thing that to hopefully dissuade people from lighting torches and running down to cryptic studios, just basically putting everything into perspective, because you might at first glance say, oh my god, we've been nerfed, but actually no, you haven't, and it's just a little deceiving because it's a new set of numbers and a new formula.
Yeah, in fact, some of the early things that I was hearing were that people kind of felt like it was nerfed, because before it was like you got this pretty big bump, and now it's been a little more normalized or something like that, right? And so it seemed like the overall normalization trend was a little less.
Yeah. For example, just the first point that I think I should make right off the top is in a lot of cases, you're actually just as effective in the new Tribble skill system as you were on holodeck, because especially for your resistance powers that you can now spec into with the new skill system, if you don't spec into those, you're just as effective as you were before. That you haven't all of a sudden become nerfed because the numbers have changed. So there's a lot of things like that where people might be initially concerned and say, oh, well, we have to spec into resistances now. Does that mean we've all of a sudden become less effective? And looking at like that 75% of holodeck is the new baseline. People just might be taking that slightly the wrong way.
I see. The other thing about the other thing outside of just the issue of the numbers changing is some of the names have changed, and I don't necessarily know like what Starship batteries really gets me. Now you can hover over it, and you can get a little little pop-up that describes it to you. But some of the names are totally new too, so there's a whole new set of kind of nomenclature to learn.
Yeah. For in the case of the new Starship batteries, it's your batteries. As if you just buy a battery from one of the vendors and put it on your ship, it's not changed. It's still the same thing. Yeah. By adding points into the skill, all of a sudden your batteries are becoming more effective. You haven't lost anything in some cases. So it
literally applies to batteries. It's not like okay.
Yeah, it's not the emergency or aux to battery skill.
That's kind of what I was thinking it was. I thought it was more like an emergency reserve of power that, yeah, exactly.
No, it's basically just to make your batteries consumables just that much better.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is your battery you buy from your vendor. It's the same as it always has been. Thing is, when you start speccing into it, all of a sudden now it becomes that much better. You'll get a longer duration, or the effects will increase, and generally, if you
which will probably apply to the red matter capacitor as well, I bet.
I honestly don't know about the red matter capacitor. I don't know either,
but I think it kind of acts like a battery, but just applies to all three areas at once. Yeah. So it might. That's
something I'll definitely have to investigate, because I do have the red matter capacitor.
Yeah.
But since not everyone does have some of these, the pre-order bonuses like the red matter capacitor, that hasn't been first priority.
Yeah.
But if you're using shield batteries, your shield batteries are going to get better. They haven't become worse, and you have to spec them to make them just as good or better. They are just as good as they were before.
Cryptic Mordicus in the chat room,
better.
He says he's pretty sure that the red matter capacitor will be also boosted by that. So that's neat. That kind of brings it all to one. That actually makes a little more sense, because I assumed they were just going something more difficult than that. So it's kind of a pleasant surprise. Well, what else?
Well, one of the other things that's been changed, and this is where the formula comes in. The old formula from holodeck, because it was 3 skills speccing in to get a total bonus, it would basically be your bracket, skill A plus skill B plus skill C, close bracket, plus and then there's another open bracket, your total console bonus plus your total ship equipment bonus, so like your deflector, shield array, things like that. Close bracket again would equal your total skill bonus.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually quite a big formula, which we'll include in the show notes, and we'll probably have a nice illustration of somebody writing it on a chalkboard. But
a chalkboard, huh?
There's something like that.
Okay.
I'll get Irish to hammer out those logistics later.
Nice. That's Irish problem. Let him figure it out.
He spends all day in a boardroom hammering that stuff out.
Oh yeah. He's not moving a house or anything like that at the moment.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's rather big, hefty formula because of 3 skills. And so if you think about it with, for example, your hazard emitters, that's starship operations, emitters, and then your hazard system. All 3 of those combined, plus any traits, like if you've got a join drill, you've got your trait in there. So that's the first set of brackets. And then the second set of brackets is, of course, your equipment, consoles, deflector, whatever it is. So it's a really big, beefy formula from holodeck. Whereas now on Tribble, the new skill is basically this individual skill. For example, graviton generator. That's, of course, going to help, say, your gravity well.
Yeah.
What that will do is you only have the 1 skill plus your console bonuses, and that's in brackets, times 3. That's how the new
That's a lot simpler, isn't it?
Way simpler. Everyone in the chat room right now probably couldn't recite the old formula back to me, whereas they could recite the new one.
Yeah.
That's just how much simpler it's got.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of ties into the new console changes, where a lot of people might have said, wait a minute, I have all these consoles and the numbers are a lot less. Well, if you look at them, they're actually about 1/3 of what they were before on holodeck. And the reason being is that you have that in the first set of brackets, you have skill plus your console, and then that's multiplied by 3.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, the numbers have actually been reduced because the effect is still the same. It's just being multiplied by 3.
Yeah, that 3 multiplier is what does it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what brings it back up to where it was. So we're actually going to see situations sticking with the gravity well theme. If you look at again, sticking with graviton generators, improving gravity well, you can spec into graviton generators, improving the negative repel, so the attraction of the gravity well, and then a second skill for the, where is it here? Pardon me. Sorry, I've lost the skill, but there's a second skill that will actually improve the exotic damage. And what that will do is then, of course, benefit your damage skill. So all of a sudden your gravity well, now you can make your gravity well more potent as for its attraction and also for its damage, which you couldn't really do before, with the exception of moving up in your tier.
You're probably then foreseeing somebody could now sort of more specialize in gravity well. So when they're going to do some sort of cooperative gameplay where maybe you want to collect some board cubes or something like that, or spheres, you'll have somebody like, okay, your gravity well guy, go out there and load it up because you've spent all your skill points on making gravity well awesome. And you're going to start seeing people get a little more specific, I think.
People can get more specific and more creative, because with the way gravity well used to be, the thing that would affect your repel was your rank. So if you had gravity well 1, it wasn't as good as 2 and wasn't as good as 3. You couldn't attract the ships in. Whereas now, if, let's say, you're a science, you can take gravity well 3, you can spec in really huge attraction, big damage, you can suck everything in.
I could be not just a scientist, I'm like a gravity scientist.
Yeah, you can bring everything in, you've collected all your enemies, or you've sucked in one enemy, and all of a sudden it's in an escape, or in a gravity well, it just can't escape, and it crushes your enemy ship like an empty beer can.
Like a delicious empty beer can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's things like that, but also if, let's say you're a tactical captain and you're flying a multi-vector advanced escort, one of the things you could do, because you're limited to gravity well 1 with the Doff configuration, one of the things you could do is just spec into the hold. So all of a sudden people or you could suck in a group of enemies because of really high attraction, but don't spec into the damage because you could run something like a cannon scatter volley and torpedo spread, and you'll hit them all, hit them with torpedo spread, and they all blow up.
That sounds like a beautiful thing, really. So you have some new, I guess this brings new skill point combos people are going to be able to do now. It's kind of like bringing a refresh, new ways to play with it.
Yep, new ways to play with it. And one other thing I'll also mention that's also really important, when you think about how much you would have to dump into certain skills just to get something like a really powerful gravity well in the old system, you'd be spending, in the 3 different tiers, versus now with a single tier you can actually get just as much effectiveness cheaper. So to put that in the example that Jeremy actually used, which I thought was the best one, a lot of science captains, again sticking with the science theme, they would have points in Starship Operations and Starship Emitters, but they wouldn't put anything in Tractor Beam because, well, I could put points in Tractor Beam, but I'd rather have them in Gravity Well or Charged Particle Burst, Photonic Shockwave, any number of other things. So what you can do now with, again, graviton generators, you would only have to spec in 2 levels of that, the 10 and the 6. So the first 2 levels, whereas, you were spending, I think it was 2,700 skill points in the first 2 tiers, operations and emitters, to get a plus 48 to your tractor beam, whereas now to get a plus 48 to your tractor beam, it's 900 points of skill.
So you're able to...
putting... Yes,
I honestly have been listening this entire time trying to pick apart like what the negative impact is, and I'm not really hearing it. I like that.
You're getting way better bang for your buck if you're just wanting to use something like Tractor Beam 1 as an accent ability. Yeah. So you grab somebody and then hit them with like the stun and shield drain. Well, your Tractor Beam, because you've only put 2 points in there, you're getting way better bang for your skill points in the new system because, again, you only have to spec in to the first 2 levels rather than having to spec in 9 in tier 1, 9 in tier 2 to get the same plus 48.
Yeah. So then like keeping with the science theme, I can focus on the abilities I can get higher tiers of in my buff slot layouts and things like that. Yeah. And get those things really amped up.
Yes, and that's one thing I definitely notice about the new skill system is not only are you getting better value, you don't have to spec max into everything. And I know, like, especially for the min-maxers, you've got a lot more room to maneuver now. You don't necessarily have to master that skill.
That is going to be so nice. You can stay a little more, so you can be super specific or you can be a little more generalized.
Yeah, you can be ridiculously specific or you can try and work yourself to be a little more jack of all trades. Yeah. It's basically just how you want your build to look. And it gives you a lot more room for customization, room to play it around. Yeah. And also, once this new skill system becomes a lot more developed, you'll see myself and Kazuma Cat, who's working on new builds with me in Jupiter Force, will actually bring forward, okay, this is what a tank build might look like. This is what a science...
Cover some of those on the show here, huh?
Yep, we'll actually bring those forward and show people examples of what it might look like so that there's... hopefully to clear up some of the confusion and also show you that you can get just as much, if not more, out of the skill system because, as they've said, some stuff is going to 75% of the holodeck base for its effectiveness, but that is, you can call that the negative, but with the new skill system, good specking can get you up to 150% of holodeck's effectiveness.
Exactly, so yeah.
So...
So it's a negative in the current sense, but if you refocus and sort of replan how you're spec'd out, you could actually end out better off.
Yes.
That's kind of fun anyways.
The one thing I will grant people, which is kind of the only big negative that I can really see, consoles have made a huge change, and it's not just the numbers, it's things like if a bunch of you did what we suggested during the STF event, basically we had suggested everyone go out and get hazard emitters on your ship because you saw what happened to Chris, getting his shield strained all the time. A lot of people might have gotten a hazard emitters, bought a few Halon consoles. All of a sudden, those Halon consoles don't do the same thing that they used to. There's the one negative. A lot of the science consoles have changed, and some of the other ones have changed. So you might have to go out and buy some new consoles, depending on where things are.
Okay. All right. I had to do that for the STFs. I do that on occasion anyways, It's not a big deal. All right. Well, any other areas we wanted to cover?
No, I think that's got most of it covered. The one other thing that has changed as far as the consoles are concerned, the power bonus consoles, like your just anything that used to be +7 bonus to weapons, shields, and those ones, those have changed. Those are still under review, so don't panic about those.
So no final details yet, though?
Yes, the final details are still coming. They're still being worked on, so...
Probably a future math segment, then.
That's probably going to be future math, and also you're going to see future numbers roll out. It's just a matter of taking it and reviewing it.
And we still haven't really seen the stuff for ground yet.
No,
so that's
we still haven't seen any of the stuff for ground.
Yeah.
And as Al said, it could be as much as a month away, so it should hopefully be ready for free-to-play launch, but don't expect it until maybe Christmas at the earliest.
All right. I'm not in a rush. There's plenty of stuff for us to dig into for a little while, so I think we'll have it covered. All right, Niki. Well, thanks for coming on the show and mathing us.
You got mathed.
You got it. That's right. We got math. All right, everyone. You know what that means. It's time to move on to the Foundry Files. And welcome to the Foundry Files. We've got a good one for you today because we're going to get your hands on some new content. The guys have been raving about this one. I'll give you a few stats before we go, but first, I'll introduce the Foundry Files team. Hey guys, welcome back to the show.
Hey Chris.
Oh, aren't you guys a bunch of handsome devils? All right, so we're talking about the city of Polmar-Re. Am I saying that right? Polmar?
Yes.
I am.
Polmar-Re.
Polmar-Re. I actually almost got it. That's incredible. So this is kind of a funny moment for us here on the Founder Files because look at this panel. Look at these guys. One of them is a rather desperate man these days. He sits up there on the right. His name is Murphy. Murphy, have you heard they're selling the Foundry slots for dilithium now?
What? Wait, repeat that?
That's right. 2 slots, 7K.
I said I'm out of here, bye.
What? No, Murphy, we got to do a show. Murphy, get back. Where's he going to go get dilithium? Where are you going?
I won't put it past him.
Yeah, you could actually get 2 slots for 7,000 dilithium. What do you guys think?
All my dilithium's gone. I'm just saying that right now.
You're going for this?
I'm buying all of them, all 40.
Yeah, you can get up to a maximum of 40 additional slots. 48 for gold members.
Yep. So if you are a desperate Foundry author like me and you need some slots, get a gold account and buy all 40 of them.
Totally.
Plus, the prices are super cheap, in my opinion. I mean...
I'll offer 1 million dilithium if someone stops Murphy from getting any additional slots.
Oh, poor guy. We need the missions, though. We need the missions, Irish. This actually, the one we're going to talk about today, the city of Polmar-Re, is a Fed mission by Almac 30. He's also the author of Spirits of Ramak Nor, which we've talked about before. This episode at this time of this episode, this mission had 280 plays, an average rating of 4.35. Playtime is roughly about 45 to 60 minutes, and it's got a very strong Star Trek plot. It feels like an episode that was never made, but should have been. And I got to play about 30 minutes of this, and I would agree with that statement right there. But Murphy, that's probably our best jumping off point story-wise. I felt a lot of Trek. What do you think? What was your takeaway?
I think this mission has one of the most unique plots we've seen in a while. And so in the mission, you're going to pass through a transient wormhole to go to a city that rests above our galaxy, which is the city of the Polmar-Re. And so the story just feels so Star Trek when you run through this. Like, it should have been a Star Trek episode. Like, I'm seriously suspicious that this guy found like a long lost script.
I would argue it could actually be a Star Trek movie. It's pretty epic in scope.
Yeah, like if they were making a Enterprise movie, because we'll get into that later. This could have been an Enterprise movie.
Mhm.
And so the Palmari are actually a species that this author has completed greatly for this mission. And they're one of the ancient races like the Iconians or the Takan. And they weren't really wiped out like the other ones. Well, we're not sure if the Iconians were wiped out yet. Seems like they're not.
We don't know yet.
But the Palmari left our galaxy, flew their ships above our galaxy, and built a huge city out there. And that's where their entire species has lived. And so the interesting thing here in this mission is that every 216 years, the Palmari invite all the species in the Milky Way galaxy to their city for a huge cultural and technology exchange.
Good guy, bad guy, Borg, Klingon.
It doesn't matter. As long as you can interpret the message that they send out, you
Which
can
is
find these wormholes. Yeah. And because Earth actually received this signal in 1977, but they had no idea what it was. So
And this is an interesting point of the mission, because that 1977 signal, also known as the WOW signal, is a real historical thing that actually happened. We actually did get some sort of amazing mathematical signal back
So
in
the author knew this
1977.
stuff. And that's awesome.
And he sets up the math for this entire that the math works out that the dates in all of the story of this mission hit that 216 year mark perfectly. It's really cool.
Yeah, so the first time we went to the city is when Admiral Archer was around, and he's the one who actually represented the Federation when they went there. So that's why I think they could have totally done an Enterprise episode or a movie because of Archer visiting this city.
Right, yeah.
So there's also some foreshadowing of the power of the Palmari because one of the Q visited Palmari and tried to do some bad stuff, and he was punished and executed for what he did.
They managed to punish and execute a Q.
Yep.
Think about that for a second.
So that shows just how powerful they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are going to be many great characters you encounter throughout this mission just because of their personality and the dialogue that really shines through. But there are three major characters that you will encounter during this mission. A joint Trill diplomat by the name of Reagan, a Vulcan Starfleet officer who is named Georgia, correct?
And sounds right.
I think that's
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And a legendary Klingon Dahar master whose name I cannot even pronounce if he held a disruptor to my head. So I'm not going to even try on that one.
And neither am I.
And he also actually brings two characters in, very minor though, that are actually you find in Spirits of Ramak Nor. There was a Ferengi and the purple-haired chick or whatever that you will actually meet in this mission who are like selling out stuff, trying to make a profit off of this whole event.
Right.
So that was a really nice touch to come across. But great dialogue from all these characters. They felt real to me, and I grew attached to them in this mission.
Mm-hmm. And there's some suspicion going on in the storyline, and a bit of a mystery involved. What did you overall rate the story? What'd you think?
Story received a 9.00.
Whoa!
So really good story. There's going to be a lot of suspense that will build up here. Lots of touchstoning and canon uses because all the races of the galaxy are coming together in this one location. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because most of these races don't get along. So you'll find out while playing through this mission.
Mm-hmm. And they imply that some Star Trek big discoveries in the past might have been slightly inspired by these guys.
Yeah, like technological advances and such, because they hand out technology to other races. And one of the controversial issues is, are these species ready for some of the technology that they hand out?
Right. And you hear, I won't say too much, but you hear a little bit, Archer, when he visited, tries to take that on, and they kind of go into that a little bit. It's kind of interesting.
But, he was questioning why they did that and interfered technically when their principle was to not.
Right. Now, speaking of technology, Irish, you always handle the technical side of these Foundry missions, so what'd you think?
In terms of technical score, this thing is clocking up there at the best we've got. It hit 9.25. It came in fourth position.
Really?
There's a major reason for that. It actually knocked Spirits of Ramak Nor to second place, which is obviously the highest one we had previously. Mainly that's because with Ramak Nor, we had a few pre-built maps. In this one, the author has gone all out and customized and built from the ground up. Like, it really is scary the level of detail this guy's gone to. He said the mission took him 4 months to craft. You can really see that when you look at the maps.
And you know, one of the things that I think is one of the maps that's really stand out is they take Jeremy's favorite ship, the Olympic style, the one that has the force fields in the front of the ship, and he kind of says, well, this is what they're doing with those force fields, or at least this is what they could do, and he builds in this massively epic arboretum that lives inside that dome that you get to go visit. It's this huge, like forest inside a starship kind of thing. And when you
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe. And when you first go out there and you look up, because you're traveling at warp, you see the stars streaking over the dome of the starship as you're walking around this Arboretum. It's beautiful.
Really nice touch.
But that's the thing about it, and this is why it's got a much higher technical score. It's not just fluff. When you go in there, the only thing you need to do is walk along that platform, take in the visuals, and go talk to the guy in the actually quite well manufactured, it's almost like a Pike wheelchair.
Very very much.
And he's supposed to be like an 800-year-old joint Trill, so you're talking to that guy. It's like the only thing you have to do is talk to him. But what happens is if you look to your left when you come out on the platform, the gantry first, there's a little set of stairs down into the Arboretum.
Right.
And there's some nice little Easter eggs laid out there. So like, you go the first one, it's got a lamp, a little kind of a lamppost, and there's a console beside it. When you click on it, it starts giving you passages from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then if you use your scanner and you keep moving around, you find each console is laid out. But one of the cool ones I found, which I'm not going to spoil, I would say, when you get to a bridge, there's a console that tells you what it's about. It's a Three Billy Goat Scruff, and there's a little surprise for you near the bridge.
Yeah, so
it was awesome.
It's worth running around inside the Arboretum. It's not, that part of it isn't necessary for the mission, but it's fun.
Nope.
I like
it. It's an alternate path. It's cool. That was that main map. There's a lot more. The placement of that is probably important to mention as well. That was placed in, for a story reason, in the middle of Eta Eridani, so at the Donatu system, just away from K7.
Yeah,
so
initially I was a little bummed because I was at Seoul, and sometimes I get a little grumpy when I have to travel a lot for Foundry missions, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the Doff system to play now.
True, but Ambassador, transport the K7, slight trip across.
Yeah,
you should have done your diplomatic missions. Lazy.
No, well, I have the Constitution. So, or I mean, the Constitution. I have the Excelsior.
Oh, that makes more sense.
There you go.
I got my Star Trek 3 moment in my mind mixed up. I just picture like the Constitution having warp drive, and
because it outran the ship,
and then having no. I'm just like picture it now. Picture the whole thing reversed, where the crew of the Enterprise steals the Excelsior. How cool would that have been? And Scotty has to sabotage the Constitution. That'd have been badass. Okay, so
that would have been awesome.
Yeah, right.
Is this your trick?
I want to see that.
You're going to troll the segment every time to get the word Excelsior in there? Is that how this works?
What? No, nothing. No.
Yeah, okay. Right, so the other trick, obviously you're in the right area. The reason I think that's important is because there's a major faction from the Klingon also going into the, or from the KDF, going in through this wormhole into the intergalactic city, or extragalactic city as it's called. So placing it there made perfect sense that the wormhole was actually proximal to both empires.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a nice touch. Even though you don't have a KDF version of this mission, you still had the idea that, oh, well, that makes sense why they'd have the wormhole there, because it lets both groups go through.
Yep.
And moving on from that one, there's a couple of things, like there's some ship interiors that we've used here. He's done trigger of battle effects, like you're wandering through a Federation ship interior that he's built himself, like a little shuttle bay and then some corridors. And as you go through it, you start getting screen shake, you start getting bits of debris coming through the walls, you get plasma leaks breaking out of the walls. All really nice special effects to show you that you're actually in the middle of a battle, despite the fact that you can't see anything but walls.
I love it when they do that. And that's also one of the reasons I love it when they do that is that happens in Star Trek all the time. They run through the bowels of the ship during a battle. And it never happens during Cryptics missions. It only Foundry authors ever seem to do that, so it's kind of a unique opportunity to get to do that. One bit before we go too far is this used the new wormhole asset too, which is really nice for the new wormhole effect. I guess they just must have replaced it. I didn't realize that the Foundry authors would already be able to use the new wormhole graphic. So that's
awesome. It's the first time I'd seen that, and what was interesting is on the way in, it's kind of in the distance, but there's a nice, we'll talk about in a minute, how you get to it. There's a little trick to that. But when you come through the other side, it's right behind you, and it actually lights up the whole city. When it opens, the light effect from it, whatever way they've built it in the engine now, it actually lights up all the metallic parts of the city. It's fantastic to see.
It's very cool.
Yeah, the workaround for that, actually, I want to point out, is that he hid Deep Space Nine, because it is the Deep Space Nine system. He just threw a planet over it, which I think was just a nice workaround there.
That's great.
I didn't even think about that. That was just awesome.
I had no idea. In fact, they actually worked the planet into the storyline, too. So
yep.
Yeah, that was the nice part. In the dialogue, he actually says, oh, it's molecularly identical to the planet we just left. You're like, okay, that's nice. You're telling me why there's a planet there, but I'm not going to go near it. And then you go, oh, this is the DS9 zone. Now you know why.
Yeah, well, they also imply that planet is like, because it's on the same molecular, easy for me to say, molecular level, that it might be some sort of anchor point between the two systems for the wormhole.
That's an example of the author you're dealing with here. This guy is a master at story. I know I'm doing technical and I'm stepping on Murphy's toes with story, but it really is his main strength. He takes the story, but then he molds the environments and the story together, and that's what makes his mission so strong.
There was a moment, though, when I zoned down to the Arboretum for a second time and then zoned out immediately. Did that happen to you?
No, that sounds like a glitch because when you beam out of the Arboretum, you go straight on to the next piece. You never go back to that zone.
So I beamed out of the Arboretum, went back to my ship, immediately had a dialogue to beam back down to the Arboretum, and then immediately had a dialogue to beam out.
I'm guessing you got a glitch there.
Okay.
Some sort of bug.
Interesting.
Yeah. No.
But just clocking through that, said get through the tech part for you here. Transitions basically are normally we score these against is someone using pointless maps to get you around the place. Not at all the case here. Every map has a purpose. Every map has customizations. Brilliant work here.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of technique, pretty much every trick or technique you want to call from the Foundry tool sets, he's used here, and he's used them in ways that you don't even realize. Like there's bits where you're wandering through this, what he calls I think it's the City of 1,000 Species.
Yeah.
You're going through that, and what I noticed, the wander mechanic is brilliantly done because he's using invisible walls to keep you funneled. And as you go up one of the avenues, you'll notice a certain series of NPCs when you go by them. But when you go back, they're in a different order, in a different place. They're talking to different people. There's different dialogue coming up. So I think what's going on is when he's moved you up a certain way and you're out of visual range of what's going on the way back, it's triggered a new set.
Oh, that makes sense.
So he's adding in people.
It's a good trick.
It's just, you barely notice it. I only noticed it because I was being really careful about what NPCs I could talk to in the quest and when I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it was
really
just
paying
interesting
attention.
and cool to see it.
Yeah.
From a creativity perspective, the guy has covered everything you'd want. He's done exactly what he did with Ramaknor. He gives you interesting characters. He gives you a little bit of a moral dilemma because that's something we haven't really covered, is the fact that you're actually supposed to be in here helping the ambassadorial delegation. But you have a Starfleet intelligence, not an Section 31, an actual Starfleet intelligence person with you, who you've got one guy pulling you to one side saying, don't trust them, trust me. And then that intelligence agent says, oh, don't trust them, trust me.
And
so
they
you're
both
stuck in
make
the middle.
really good cases. So much so that you and I actually had like a little mini debate on TeamSpeak, like which one's right? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, I got to finish it, so I find it out. So I'm not going to spoil that for you.
I got to
go back and
finish
play
it. I got to finish it.
And
It's
then-
worth it.
The only other thing I come up with, I have two pieces to finish off with. One of them is that there's a lot of out-of-character dialogue used in here. The orange text that people have seen quite a bit of. And where it's really helpful here is there's a bit where you're talking to the ambassador. He says, we're going to go to a function. We're going into the city and we're talking to the Paul Marie. And then up in orange it comes, if you have a diplomatic uniform, go to the icon for your face, right-click on it, change uniform. It actually tells you how to put your uniform on if you have one.
Yeah.
So very nice touch for user help.
And it's
then
handy if you have a dress uniform, you actually get to use it.
Exactly.
Purpose.
It's a role play piece, but okay, it's nice.
Yeah.
Little role play is good.
Yeah.
The only criticism I can throw in on this, and this is the same I had for Ramaknor, he's brilliant on story, he's brilliant on technical, and he's, I'd say, average when it comes to combat. He's using some NPCs on the ground and in space, but there's no real depth to the combat, and that's, I think, the only weak point you could ever throw on it. This is nitpicking for these missions. If you took one of the authors who was fantastic at combat, like you go in, say, like an Old Lord Skull, or even Haver has done it with Time the Enemy, if you bring those guys in and maybe collaborate a little bit on these things,
Oh, so have
you
one
have a
guy work
triple
on the
threat.
combat side and one guy work on the story side?
exactly, you'd have a triple
Team
threat.
working in the Foundry.
It's a brilliant way of doing it.
It's a great way.
Well-
I always think that'd be a great way for fleets to work too.
Yeah, and you can see it because, like, I've seen dialogues. I know there's something going on at the moment over Starbase UGC with, I don't know the full details, but I've heard they're doing like a 5-series mission on Fed and KDF that's just supposed to be like a featured episode series.
Oh, cool.
And there's multiple authors collaborating on both sides of the
How do
actual
they do that? Do they just get a new account?
I would suspect it could be either a new account or it could be, myself and Murphy tried this with a Skype test one time, desktop control of the machine that's logged in.
Oh, that
Yep.
makes sense. So you
So
gotta,
that's one way of doing it.
and you can at least, if nothing else, collaborate that way and monitor each other.
Yeah. And
Now,
you can talk.
what did you give the overall technical section there, Irish? Did you
9.25.
9.25?
Top score we have.
Wow.
The overall score for this mission was 8.55. It's our second ranked highest
Yeah.
mission by 0.01
Yeah, it's
in the
close,
score.
though.
And his previous mission is the one that's topping that right now. So he has our current two top missions in the scoring. But so overall, this is one of the team's favorite missions out there. And we say play it because it has a simply amazing story, excellent technical usage, and good gameplay. And the author has produced a classic STO mission only rivaled by Spirits of Ramaknor.
You know, it is an interesting point. If you took a guy like this, because what, Irish, you said it took him 4 months to make this mission? You take a guy like this, you give him the resources, maybe you bring him in. Wouldn't it be awesome if there was like some sort of come make a mission for Cryptic week or something like that where they could bring some of these great Foundry authors in and give them the resources they need and the tool sets and say, all right, go for content. I would love to see when free-to-play hits just boom, 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 hit content like crazy, and you have these people out there who obviously have the chops. You never know. Right?
You got one important thing to mention there, Chris, the guy's name. It's Alamak Turti.
There you go. There you go.
Get his name out there.
Get it. And again, people are asking in the chat room because we mentioned at the top of the segment, but it's the city of Palomare, right?
Palmarie.
Palmarie. I think I had it right the first time.
You did.
Yeah,
All right.
I think we'll leave the pronunciation to the author. He can figure that part out.
Now, the important thing to remember, though, is you can find the official review with the full write-up and more details over on the show notes.
Yep, and we had an even better mission picked out for this week. I know it's really hard to believe.
Yeah.
But Wee Wee was begging us to review it. He was like, please, please, please let us review it. So just piss him off. We said no. So we're sorry about that. But if you have other good missions, you can email them to us at foundryfiles@jupiterforce.net.
Well, his video did freeze during the Foundry Files segment, so I think...
It's still frozen.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
On my side, it is.
No, it's still frozen, so I think yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Well,
Also,
if KDF missions might appear stupid to you, but not as stupid as that Tina Turner wig you wear on STOked every week.
Oh,
whoa.
Irish, can you get us out of here? Can you save us?
Dude, that's going to be really tough for you.
Save us, Irish, save us. Give us some links here to follow.
I'll leave the guys to do handbags of 10 pages. Let's get into some of the linking off here of where this stuff comes from.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing, got to mention it as always, starbaseugc.com. That's the community that teach people how to do this stuff. That's where you'll learn. That's where you'll find all the text and tricks you need. They're all over there. The tutorials are the key to that. There's some actual YouTube videos linked there that were done by the outgoing leader, which is Kirkvat. There's a whole post about what's happening there at the moment. But those tutorials are fantastic for anyone who wants to get into this stuff and learn how to do what this Alamac 30 guy has been able to do. In terms of upcoming, shall we say, projects and things, the mission we've just talked about, City of the Paul Marie, is getting a live playthrough on broadcast UGC next week. It's hosted by two guys in the community there, Bazag and Galactrix.
Cool.
And I think it's a Wednesday. Don't quote me. Check the website. I have the link in the show notes as well.
Okay.
And the only other thing I've got to talk about as well, which is something that kind of stunned me last week when it came out, the people remember before Season 4, we had a Machinima project kickoff called Star Trek Reunion.
Yeah.
Over there. I think Cerberus Films is the website, and that's where you can get it from. Again, I have the link for that. Just StarTrekReunion.com.
I think we've mentioned it once before on the show, and it's...
exactly.
It's a pretty cool
you got
project.
Mission 1. Yeah, you got Episode 1 out there. You actually, I think you should even show a little bit of it on the live stream. What's happened last week, which I wasn't expecting, was I got a little tweet came out from the guy saying, F2 trailer. I was like, oh, okay. And clicked it, and I was not expecting what you get. I was thinking it's going to be typical Foundry Machinima. You'll see the characters moving, a little bit of mouth talk, but nothing else. Totally blew me away. In fact, I believe you've got a community feedback segment coming up with Asmic, and I've dropped the trailer into Dropbox for you. So you've got the 720p trailer if you want to run it. It's about 4 minutes long, but it's fantastic.
No, I think I'll play it at the end of the show. After we wrap up community feedback, I'll roll the trailer so people can see it. That sounds really awesome.
Yeah, so there's a few bits in the show notes about who's involved in podcast UGC. I believe Terry Lynn voices the main character, but there's names there. I'll do name dropping later because I'll probably forget people and get aggro for it.
All right, we should probably wrap up because our Skype connection just went all kinds of crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, you look at that. Murphy got attacked by the wee virus. Ooey came back full action, but we got through the episode, so that's all that matters. So that once again, the city of what? Paul Marie. So Paul Marie. Links in the show notes along with the full details of all the stuff we covered. I think that just about wraps up the Foundry Files. Let's jump into community feedback.
I feel like I'm just slaughtering them. Very common.
And welcome to the community feedback segment. Now, just like last week, Mav from Jupiter Force joins me, and we put out the call. Send us in your thoughts, your questions, your current state of the game mindset to STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. We've collated some of those emails, haven't we, Mav? And we've got something we're going to talk about. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back again. Thanks for I want to thank the community for sending the emails you guys have sent in. We got a few of them. One of them really sparked our interest. It comes from user at D-Shot, and he says he logged in and saw that he had some DOS assignments, headed out to lunch, and was thinking, is there a mobile app for STO?
Oh my gosh, right?
Right, and then he pointed out, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a mobile app for not only the Doff system, but maybe the marketplace,
exchange, like for dilithium, perhaps?
Mm-hmm. So it got us all thinking, what if there was an app for the Doff system, or for just kind of pushing off those tasks that may be time-consuming that you could probably flip down at work and go, let me see what my Doffs are up to. Just kind of an idea.
If I had like an iPad app or an Android tablet app, I would probably here's my iPad, right? I would take my iPad and I would I have this case, and I would flip it out, and it sits on a stand like this, and I would literally probably have the Doff system up all day long. I would just sit there with the Doff system up. That would be awesome. And I happen to know from having personal conversations with Heretic when we went down there, in fact, it probably even made it into some of our interviews, a lot of the back-end stuff, I think, and a lot of the front-end stuff, you can kind of tell it's ready for a mobile device. It's like just begging for it.
You know, he made some comparisons to other applications such as, you know, Blizzard has one for their game. You know, we were kind of tossing about, well, if we did have that, would they charge for it? Would you pay for it? And what would be the perk between silver members, gold members, and lifetime subscribers? And would it count toward helping you auto-refine your dilithium by logging in every day?
Does it count as a login if you check the app? I would say it doesn't. I would bet they say no. I think the big problem you have, though, with the Doff system is right now you have to travel to different sectors to get different assignments. So how do you solve that on the iPad?
Right, you'd be kind of limited because the missions for the Doff system refresh every, 30 minutes, hour or so on, even if you stay in the same sector.
Yeah.
So you kind of be stuck with the certain missions you have. Even if you were to send everybody off, you got to kind of wait for the refresh. But you figure you do it in the morning when you get to work or whatever. Do it, put it down, pick it up for lunch. Okay, this is what's done, and then come back again.
And then when you come back home, you actually travel again.
Right, and then you'd be actually traveling again. So it left, and then having the ability to maybe merge that with Fleet Chat, instead of having have a built-in XMP client so that you can chat with your fleet mates or chat with pretty much anybody in the game. Or could you also access your in-game email? How many different things could you attach to this app, and would you pay for it?
Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think there's separate licensing that Cryptic would have to seek out with CBS to do an app like this. So this would really have to be something driven from the community. But I kind of wish that wasn't the case. This Doff system and making a mobile app is an opportunity for Cryptic to step up and say, yeah, we're a Class A MMO. We have these kinds of ancillary things attached to our MMO that offer a complete, total immersion even when you're at work. And the question is it inevitable? And if it is inevitable until that app is created, what are they waiting for? Time? Maybe more resources. I hope to God they're not waiting for another MMO like Tor to release something like this. I know WoW already has something. I just don't want to see them doing an Us 2 release. I wanted them to do it because they understand the player base wants at this stuff.
Well, I think also, if there was an app like this, you'd have a lot more people involved in the game, both internally and externally. Even if you were to open it up to developers and different ideas, just bringing more of the community in. Also, could you imagine just for a moment a separate app for the founders, for the people writing the Foundry missions? To be able to write, plug in maps or move things, be able to just write on the fly using either an iPad app or some kind of Android tablet app.
That'd probably be pretty intensive. That'd be pretty amazing, though. It really would.
And then imagine the inner functionality while you're playing the game to have your app. You don't even have to open up your Doff screen while you're playing a mission. You can easily just tab it through and have it activate while you're in motion. That would be
so cool. So I would have like the tablet, whatever it is, sitting right next to my machine while I'm playing.
I mean, imagine sitting in your own captain's chair, being able to look down, tap what you need, but still be able to get what you're done. Other developers, and I've seen it, we've had other people say, well, hey, why can't I have like my power tree on an app where all I have to do is deal about flying around in my tactics, and I can just tap with my other hand my powers.
Oh, there are a couple out there. I've tried them. I would love to see something from Cryptic, and even if it starts out as just an HTML5 app that works great in my browser for the Doff system, I would love to start there, because here's what happens with me in the Doff system. I get totally into it. I go full 100%, and then something happens. I get busy. Like on Thursdays, for example, when I do TechSnap, I just never have time to log in and do the Doff system, and I kind of get discouraged. I fall behind, kind of get bummed out. And in my case, because I either run Linux or Mac OS X, there's a whole nother layer where I have to reboot my operating system into Windows in order to play STO, and so that becomes a pain in the ass. If I could stay dedicated to an app where I could keep that rolling, just keep the ball rolling, not even travel, if I could just keep the ball rolling, and then when I could sit down, I wouldn't feel like I have to give up. Like, I honestly haven't messed with the Doff system now since Wednesday, because I feel like, well, I'm already just so far behind, why bother?
Right.
This would keep me going, though. This would keep
Right,
me
and
in there.
it would keep me going. It would just being able to not have to sit here and open up a separate screen, where I can sit here and concentrate on what I'm going on, and then have it, beat me, message me, whatever, have it in a little dot cradle on my desk where I can keep an eye on it, as it's going, and I don't have to worry about it.
Or maybe even a push notification. Do-do-do-do. Your Doff is ready. Your Doff assignments are complete.
And then let's sweeten it up. Let's tie it up. Say you buy the app, so you get a little data pad in the game as a collectible item, or something to show that you pay for it. Now, would you pay an upkeep? Would it be a dilithium upkeep, cryptic point upkeep, whatever? I think it'd be an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I think, I really believe it's an opportunity to start with the Doff system, see how people respond to that, maybe expand it from there to include things like the exchange. It'd be great to have chat. It'd be great to have some controls. Oh my gosh, inventory management would be
Of
nice,
course,
right?
Being able to if you happen to inventory management to a point where you can maybe just clear being able to just sell off the stuff you have. You won't be able to vendor anything.
Right.
You won't be able to access
nothing major, but like honestly, like I don't log into the game and go, I'm going to go clean up my inventory. What I do is I go, oh, I've got an hour to play this game and it's been 2 days. I'm going to get right to business. And then I get down to killing some dudes and find out my inventory's full. So then I'm sitting there, I'm waiting until I'm out of combat, and then I go like discard a few things that I wish I didn't have to discard, and then I collect whatever the stupid reward is, and that's how I operate. I operate at 100% all the time.
Right. Even the Doff missions, you get you little things here and there. You end up with samples or schematics and stuff like that. And being able to go, okay, well, I don't need all this trash stuff. Boom, let me just pinch all this stuff off or throw it on the exchange remotely. Now I don't have to worry about it.
And the whole concept, I think, of an inventory is a little shaky in STO because these starships supposedly have massive cargo holds. But I'll take it. Right. I love the idea of an app. I'd like to get people's opinions on that too. And see what they think. So, of course, email those into STOked@JupiterBroadcasting.com. But the WoW Armory was one that you'd mentioned. We know that exists. Are there any other MMOs out there that currently tie in with an app that we know of?
Not that I know. And what was interesting about the WoW Armory, not to go off into a WoW tangent, but it was like you can get the free Armory app, which you can pull up your character sheet and stuff like that. You can search for items. There's not a whole lot you can do, but if you pay the subscription cost, I think it was like $2 a month or $3 a month, then you can get access to your guild chat, access to the auction houses, access to a bunch of other things, and that was your monthly upkeep. I have the free app because I barely play WoW, and it was just something to kill time in between free-to-play launch and whatnot and testing.
The chat room says Eve has a third-party app, and then there's the other space MMO. It starts with a V. I'm totally blanking on it right now, but it actually has you can play the entire game on an Android tablet. Vendetta Online. Online. You can actually play all of Vendetta Online on a Motorola Zoom, and they're supposedly working on an iPad 2 port as well. So. Other MMOs are going to begin to differentiate themselves in this exploding market. Also, this is the last point I'll make on this, is Apple's going to sell like 15 million iPads over the Christmas holiday. And there's no reason why Cryptic couldn't get in on a little bit of that. And also, I think they'll do it based on feedback from the community. That's really why we stuck it in the community feedback segment. And was it D-Sub? He had a great email.
It was D-Shot.
D-Shot, who's in the chat room now. So thanks to D-Shot for sending that in, because I think it sparks a good conversation. And I'd love to see the community start kicking this around and kind of leaning on Cryptic a little bit to start. I know they want to do it. I know they want to. They have to know that it's going to make financial sense and that it's the right thing for their timing and priority. So maybe we can figure it out.
Right.
Anything else we want to cover, Matt?
No, I think that was the one email that stuck out. And like I said, this new community feedback, we're here to talk to you, the community members. We want to hear what you have to say. If an email we get sparks a topic and a discussion just like this one did from D-Shot, we're going to put it on the show. We're going to give you credit for it. Again, feel free, email us at STOked@JupiterBroadcasting.com. I can be emailed directly at asmic@JupiterForce.net, or you can follow me on Twitter at asmic_JupiterForce.
Very nice.
Send those emails in. We want to hear your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to roll the trailer for the project that we just mentioned with the Foundry Files guys, and then after that, we'll come back next week with I don't know if we're going to have a community feedback, so it's going to depend on you guys. So send in your emails. Mav and I might come back and kick around another topic and maybe even chat about this one a little more. All right, Mav. Well, thanks for coming on the show and shooting emails around with me.
Yep.
And thanks to everyone for tuning into this week's episode of Stoked. Now, you can find every episode, the entire 103 catalog, over at jupiterbroadcasting.com, and there's a bunch of gems in there, including some great walkthroughs and tips and tricks, so go check that back catalog. And you can subscribe to an RSS feed. And all that means is you just get the show automatically when we release it on Tuesdays. There's also the iTunes store. If you do happen to be an iTunes user, we are always soliciting comments and ratings, as long as they're positive. Because most of our peeps out there are not. So if you are one of the few iTunes users, we depend on you and your comments and ratings. It really does help, and it helps discovery of the show. So thanks to everyone who does that. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you right back here next week.
Computer. Access encrypted file. Scottish sparkling water.
Enter authorization code.
Authorization. Hamilton. Alpha Omega 2274.
Accessing.
Dax, if you're watching this, then I'm sorry. But I need you, now more than ever, to finish what has started. I fear that Starfleet intelligence may have vastly underestimated the power Gnord has built up in the Klingon Empire, and that their refusal to listen to me may be placing us, and someone we both love, at risk. I may not have a lot of time to explain things, but I will try with these files as I can. The Serengeti is currently heading to Ascension once more. But this time I've got a really, really bad feeling about it, Dax. And you know me, I don't get what you do, those gut feelings you humans keep relying on. I don't know, maybe it's just Turan disagreeing with my curry lunch. Okay, it was a lousy attempt at a joke. I have to remember, if you're watching this, then I'm dead. Last week we took on a new passenger, a scientist, someone who, I've been told, has developed a very unique weapon. The thing is, Dax, I've been led to believe certain things about this person which I and Dr. Banbai both know not to be true. I'm scared, Dax. SI has never lied to us before, and I don't know why they have now. I'm just so confused about everything that I don't know who I can trust anymore. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I can be flighty when I'm frightened. I'll calm down. It's important. It is so important that you hear everything. Several years ago, the Serengeti was assigned as a transport vessel for a large contingent of diplomats who were on their way to a biannual UFP conference on Babel. If Chep ever told you about that mission, you'll understand how close to being a complete disaster it was. Chep was instrumental in averting a ship-wide infection of the Serengeti. He was able to determine that the virus spreads as a spore-like fungus. However, what Chep doesn't know is that the fungus is actually a symbiotic life form first found on a creature that has only been recorded in one place in this universe. Ascension. So the life form was classified. It's why it was so difficult for Chep to diagnose. While anyone can be infected with the virus from its spores, those spores are usually only seen on the stinger of an Ascenti insect that appeared after one of the longer fluidic tidal flows. SI has led me to believe that the person we're currently shuttling to the planet has never been there before. But Jarara just confirmed with me that the passenger wasn't infected by a spore in the lungs, but by being stung directly. That could only happen on Ascension. Why would they lie to me, Dax? Why? I trust you. I don't know why, really, but I do. Oh, hell, you know why I do. I never will stop loving you. Someone's coming. I have to go. I'll send as many files as I can before we reach Ascension. Linya out.
Hold on a second. I seem to have it.
Seriously, what were in those muffins?
Hold on, I just gotta get this damn robot arm back in it.
I'm gonna have a serious conversation with Angela because she's
there we go. I got it.
I'm pretty sure she's doing something with those muffins.
Well,
All right.
it might not have been Angela. It could have been Dylan because Dylan was on there earlier on talking
That's
to us
true.
about his show. So I think he's trying to take you out of the job.
It's always the
That
plan.
could be. He might have poisoned the muffins.